I want to switch our attention now to the relationship between Jujigatami and attacks to the lower body, usually based around variations of Ashigurami. It's very, very important you understand something about the special nature of Jujigatami. If we have a training partner lying down, Jujigatami, the term Jujigatami has a lot of wisdom bound up within it. It means literally cross pin or cross hold down. It's very important you understand the notion of the cross position. Jujigatami always involves that perpendicular positioning, which gives it its distinctive form. Whenever I position myself across my opponent's shoulder line, this does something remarkable. It gives me equal access to upper body attacks, to the arms and the neck, and equal access to my opponent's legs. Because the cross position puts me roughly in the middle of my training partner's body. It basically bisects my opponent's body into upper and lower. And I can attack upper on my left and lower on my right. Anytime I have a Jujigatami, I can always access my opponent's legs with my arms. And as a result, there's going to be a lot of occasions where if I fail with my upper body Juji attack, there's absolutely no reason why I can't go into my lower body Ashigurami attacks. We're going to start in a situation where we're working from bottom position, because that's usually where I have my students attack it the most vociferously. So we're going to start off in bottom position, and we're going to look at situations where our opponent is standing and in situations where he's on his knees. Because how we go to attack our opponent is largely bound up with that very question. Is he kneeling, or is he on one knee, or is he standing over me? Because whether my opponent is standing or kneeling changes the distance relationship between me. And because the distance is different, my method of entry must be different. I'll come back to talk more about the different ways I can penetrate into my opponent's legs very shortly. But for now, let's look at the basic idea that underlies all of our switches from upper body Jujis down to lower body Ashiguramis. From a situation where my training partner is in my closed guard and we score some kind of Jujigatami attack, any one of the ones we've been looking at, and I get a scoop grip in as he locks up his arms defensively. I get a scoop grip in and I notice his defense feels very, very strong. He's got a good defensive formation with his arms. I make the turn and I go into the Jujigatami. But for whatever reason, I feel I'm losing the elbow. Now, I got good news and bad news. The bad news is, yes, you're losing the elbow. The good news is you can feel when it's happening. And you can use even a small amount of experience to realize as Placido starts pulling his elbow slowly out, right about here, I can feel I'm going to lose the position. I'm losing control of the head, and I've definitely lost control of the elbow. So there's no need for me to wait to let him pull his elbow all the way out. I can feel ahead of the game that I'm going to fail here. So as I fail on the upper body, I want to find success with the lower body. You will notice that Placido is on two knees. That means his hips are relatively close to me. That means the best method of entry into the Ashigurami is going to be a knee penetration method. Don't worry, I'm going to come back to that later. Knee penetration involves my right knee penetrating inside his hip. So my knee takes the inside position. The moment that occurs, I'm going to push my knee inwards on my training partner, and my hands are going to switch to a 2-on-1 grip, where my left arm goes around his knee and my right elbow goes around my training partner's ankle. You will see that my right foot is right here on my training partner's hip. I'm going to take my left foot and lock over his hip. And this is where things get interesting. My right foot is going to reposition from his left hip to his right hip. So I throw my left leg first so I control his hip. And then I switch my right foot to the other side. We now have a very special version of Ashigurami that I've never taught before on film. This is the idea of a double hip Ashi. Both of my opponent's hips are controlled. His left hip is controlled by my left leg, and his right hip is controlled by my right shoelaces right there in the pocket of his hip flexor muscle. When he goes to pull away from me, it's shockingly difficult. And your 2-on-1 control of the leg makes it even more so. Now I take my left leg and pommel it through, and as a result, we're in good position to go on the attack. Look how I take my hand up above my training partner's knee, and I find myself now in a situation where I have an X guard. So when he tries to posture up, it's very easy for me to keep his hands on the floor. Now I switch from X guard into reverse X guard, as we so often do. Everything now is about lifting his hips directly over my head. All we have to do to accomplish that is bring our knees to our chest and bring him into a position where from here I brush my legs around the hamstring and place him straight down to the mat. From here, we're in the perfect position to go into our usual Ashigarami based attacks. Let's have a look at that from another angle. We have a training partner from here in our closed guard. From here, however we hit a basic form of Jujigatami. I scoop inside my training partner's legs and we make our usual attacks. I feel I'm losing the elbow. Stop. From this position, I'm on the verge of losing the elbow right here. There's no need for me to wait for my opponent to completely pull away from me. If he just violently pulls everything away from me, there's too much space now. We've lost everything. So even as I feel I'm losing the position, I'm already repositioning my knee and penetrating with the knee. Now from here, I just pull, don't make your body hard. I push my knee inside his legs. And now we're in a winning position. Look how I've got a 2-on-1 grip. My left leg hooks over the buttocks and back heels. My right foot hooks in here at his hip. Don't worry, I'll show you from a different angle very shortly. From this position, look how my legs pommel around the corner, and initially we find ourselves in an X guard. Okay. From that X guard, I use it to keep his hands down on the floor, always keeping him out of balance. And then from here, it's an easy thing for us to switch to reverse X guard. From the reverse X guard, we just lift his hips up and off the floor, and we drop him straight down to his hip. Once we get there, it's an easy thing for us to go around the corner and go into a winning position. Let's have a look on the opposite side so you can see the critical foot position which we use in the double hip ashi. From a situation where I gather up my training partner's arm and I go into the top lock, he defends himself, we make the turn into Jujigatami, and I feel for whatever reason the Juji is inadequate. As I feel I'm losing the elbow, I'm already repositioning my knee and penetrating with the knee. As my knee drops inside, I take my top leg around the corner and hook. Now, watch how my knees push into him and create space. I switch to a 2-on-1 grip. My left leg goes over his hip and my right foot repositions right here. This is the critical foot position, right there. My shoelaces hook into the hip. Be precise. Don't let your foot drift around. Make sure it's right there in the hip. And as a result, it's an easy thing for me to reposition and move into X guard. The X guard gives excellent control of my opponent as he tries to posture up. It's always so easy to keep his hands down on the floor using X guard. Then I switch from X guard to reverse X guard. And as a result, we easily put our opponent down on the floor and go into a winning position. Now, the key element involved here is this double hip ashi. It gives a stunning amount of control over both of your opponent's hips. I'm going to show you a classical method of entering into the legs out of a Jujigatami and why I gave up on this many, many years ago. Okay, Jiu-Jitsu 101, we often get taught something like this. We go into a Jujigatami, we turn around the corner and we bring the knee inside and we throw our legs over the top. And then from here, we try to go around the corner and get into knee bars, etc., etc. First, there's a huge amount of back exposure here. That's never a good thing, okay? And secondly, only one hip is being controlled. So even when I lock in here and try to get the legs up, it's so easy for my opponent to start stepping out, turning the corner on me, and now with only one leg being controlled, look how much back exposure there is. He just starts dropping his knee down to, brings his knee down to the floor and starts coming around, starts bringing his head towards me, bringing his knee down to the floor, and then bringing his head over my head, and now there's a ton of back exposure and it's all gone wrong. So, we can't have those kinds of situations. You can't control one of your opponent's hips and think you're going to get into the legs without exposing your back. You have to go in and control both of your opponent's hips. That's why this double hip ashi is such a big advantage to work with. So once again, we start off just then like so. From here, I penetrate with the knee. I throw the top leg over. From here, I push to create space, and my foot shifts down. When my opponent tries to take my back, turn towards me, my right foot makes it impossible. Go. We can easily keep him from getting our back. If my right foot was not there, it's so easy to drop down. Drop his knee to the floor and bring his head over my head, and he's got my back. So, that double hip ashi is your insurance policy. That's what prevents your opponent getting your back. Not only is it an insurance policy, it's a great way to create space and get your opponent up in the air and into the finishes that we're looking for. So, we come in, top block, turn, juji, we start to lose the position, my knee penetrates, my second leg goes over. My first thing is to create space, then the legs go in, X guard, keeps his hands on the floor, reverse X guard, takes his hips up and over, and into a winning position where we can get the finish we're looking for. Done in this way, we have an excellent way of entering into the legs of a failed judogatame when your opponent is down on two knees. Now, we've been looking at the idea of transitioning into our opponent's lower body with ashigarami out of a failed upper body attack, judogatame. Let's understand something. The only way your opponent can resist the judogatame is to use his legs. If I'm caught in a judogatame from bottom position, and I put my legs back and away from my opponent, there's no way for me to defend the upper body. Any push with his legs will immediately put me down. The only way I can start to defend myself is to come in with the legs and posture up with the head. Once I start freeing my elbow first, we never go up with the head first, you'll break your own arm. We always start freeing the elbow and come out here. And then we start the action of moving away. I can only move my upper body away if my legs are stationary. And that's why I favor this transition so much. The only way I can defend my upper body is to leave my lower body standing. And that's exactly when he brings the knee inside and causes all the problems. So, always we're looking to create situations where I attack the upper body so hard that my opponent has to commit his lower body. If he doesn't commit the lower body, just keep going with the upper body, finish him. Straight there with the juji. But when he starts to defend by posturing up, bringing the hips in and committing with his legs, that's exactly when a switch to the lower body will be absolutely devastating. The question is, how are you going to switch the lower body? Here's my rule of thumb. Whenever someone is down on two knees, I use knee penetration. Why? Because he's so close to me. It would require extraordinary flexibility to fit my feet inside. But even an inflexible person like myself can easily get the knees inside, no matter how close my opponent is to me. So when they're down on two knees, I penetrate with the knee. However, if my opponent starts standing up, knee penetration becomes inefficient. And then I prefer to make a switch into foot penetration. Let's have a look at this now. From a situation where I have a judogatame and my training partner goes to stand up on me, and I feel I'm losing the judogatame in this position. As I feel I lose the juji, I'm going to take my outside foot, in this case my left foot, and I'm going to thread it through into an X guard position. That means that if my opponent were to throw my legs by in this direction, my left leg would protect me. If I made the mistake of trying to pommel this foot in first and he throws my legs by, there's nothing connecting me to him and he'll easily pass me by. But when my left leg goes in first, he can do whatever he wants with my other leg. I'll always be able to recover the position and get my legs into X guard. Once my legs are in X guard, it's an easy thing for us to make the switch to reverse X. And from here, we start the action of lifting up and overhead. And now we're in perfect position to lock the figure of 4 and put him down to the mat. Once we're down on the mat, that's when the finishes start coming in. And from here, we get our usual finishes on the floor. So once again, from a situation where my training partner is in the top position and we go through and get our lock. I see him standing up on me. So we catch, we make the turn into juji, but for whatever reason, we feel it's starting to slip away. Look out, from here, I penetrate with the foot. The outside foot fits inside. And as a result, I can easily make transitions very safely into X guard. Once we get from X guard, it's very easy for us to go into reverse X guard. And then it's all about that lift on the hips that brings him hips overhead and creates a situation where we can easily drop him down to the mat. From situations like this, it's not a difficult thing for us to feed everything in and get into a winning position. Now, sometimes we can even hit this move when our opponent is down on one knee. From a situation where he's on one knee and we tie up, I bring my body into the Jujigatami position. As before, I hit an outside scoop. As before, I come around the corner. Again, my legs split and I'm in the perfect position to kick everything through and lock. Now, I can fall in different directions. If I pull his leg towards me, I can take him over my right shoulder. If I pull the leg in, I can drop him forwards over the near shoulder and roll through into a strong finishing position. Once again, I catch the Jujigatami position, and for whatever reason, I'm unable to finish it and I feel I'm losing the position. Look how I turn around the corner and I punch my legs through. My left leg is on top, my right leg goes in the center, and we lock the figure of 4. From here, I can take him over in one direction, or we can push, roll through, and end up in the opposite direction. Whether you roll forwards or backwards will be up to your training partner. Let their direction of resistance dictate which way you go. Now, let's start to look at the idea of attacking into my opponent's legs from top position. We have a Jujigatami and we're on top and we want to enter into the legs because we feel the Juji is about to fail. From here, we've locked up in the traditional fashion, holding our opponent in place. Now, there's always going to be times you feel your opponent starting to turn into you and there's a danger just starting to arise that the elbow could slip out. Elbow slippage is probably the single most common problem we face whenever we go to hit a Jujigatami. If my opponent's able to turn into me and start to free his shoulder, the elbow will soon follow. And as he continues to turn, he pulls the elbow through, you lost the elbow, you've lost the whole game. Okay, there's things you can do from there, but it ain't going to be Jujigatami. So, whenever I feel my opponent's turning in on me, one of the first things I want to get into the habit of is reaching down and scooping a hold of my training partner's leg. That puts a limit on how far he can turn into me. Now, even when I feel I'm starting to lose the elbow, I'm going to take my right knee and I'm going to penetrate outside my training partner's hip. At the same time, I'm going to go to a 2-on-1 grip on the leg. One grips the knee, one grips the ankle. My top leg goes over the top and hooks into my training partner's far buttock in a position which controls both of my opponent's hips, rather like the double hip ashi that we saw earlier. From here, I'm going to use my left foot to pull my body around the corner and sit up. And as a result, we can get control of both of our training partner's legs and find ourselves in the traditional attacking position that we favor from cross ashigurami. Once again, we have an opponent in Jujigatami. From here, I get a hold of my training partner's leg. For whatever reason, I feel it's going to be difficult to control the elbow. So I'm going to take my knee and penetrate outside his hip. My two hands come down, 2-on-1 grip on the leg. My top leg goes over and hooks underneath his hamstring. And as a result, I can point my two knees at the floor, at the ceiling, just like so. I have a choice between going directly to the heel and going on the attack, or sitting up and controlling the secondary leg in our usual fashion. Whether you choose to go directly into the heel hook attack or go to the secondary leg and look for control, I leave that up to you. Once again, move. From here, I need to get my knee down to this position. I catch a hold of my training partner's leg. Watch how my knee penetrates outside the hip. From here, I go 2-on-1. I pass my foot across and hook. Now, as I pull my body around the corner, my right knee is currently facing in this direction. It must ultimately face back towards him. So it comes out and points around at him. I now have the choice between sitting up to attack the heel or sitting forward to control the secondary leg. And you can always go back to the heel and attack later. There's the juji position. There's the leg control. I put my knee as a wedge outside his hip. My two hands come in and collect his leg. My top leg goes over the top, hooks onto the far buttocks, and helps pull my body around the corner to set up either a direct attack on the primary leg or the control of the secondary leg. In this way, we can go directly from a failed Jujigatami situation directly into one of the most punishing and effective of all the various leg lock attacks. Now, it's very important to understand that the armbar system, Jujigatami, is cleanly divided in half. There are essentially two Juji systems within one overarching system. The dominant part of the system involves chest-to-chest scenarios, where I face my opponent chest-to-chest, whether it be from top position or bottom position. Because of the nature of the sport of jiu-jitsu, because back exposure is punished so severely in our sport, if someone gets on your back, there's no referee to protect you. You'll keep going until the match is over. It scores maximum points. So if someone gets your back and gets hooks in, you get punished with the maximum possible score against you. So no one's willing to expose their back. Under only the most dire circumstances will they expose their back. As a result, most of the armbar entries we tend to find in jiu-jitsu are from chest-to-chest situations where the two athletes are facing each other, often from positions of guard, mount, side control, etc., etc. However, there is a whole other method of applying Jujigatami, and this is when your opponent has exposed his back to you and you have your chest on his back. The nature of attacking Jujigatami is very different when you're chest to back versus chest to chest. You no longer have to fight through your opponent's hands. You're behind him now. Rather, the question becomes, how are you going to put him on his back? That's where things start getting interesting. Normally, when we go to apply a Jujigatami in a chest to back scenario, your opponent is in a turtle position. There's a danger he could stand up on you. There's a danger he could simply pull away from you or go back to some variation of guard. Athletically, it's quite a strong position. It's not always easy to finish your opponent when he's in a turtle situation. So what we need are mechanisms to roll our opponent over and put him flat on his back so we can go into the preferred Juji finishing position where our opponent is down on his back. It's important to understand that the skills of attacking Jujigatami chest to back are significantly different. The problems you're trying to overcome are significantly different from the more usual chest-to-chest situations. Most of our time on this video has been spent in chest-to-chest situations for a reason, because that's the more common scenario that we face in the sport of jiu-jitsu. In other grappling sports such as judo, the chest to back situation is actually more common, and they put a very heavy emphasis on training the chest to back situation. Again, ultimately, all of my videos are about mastery, in particular, your journey to mastery. If you're going to call yourself a master of Judogatame, you must be strong in both the chest to chest scenarios and the chest to back scenarios. We're going to spend quite a bit of time now going over the chest to back scenarios and the main ways in which we can attack from this situation. Our first emphasis will be on attacking turtle positions and rolling our opponent into various forms of Judogatame. After that, we'll start in the rear mountain position and show how Judogatame is a formidable weapon from there, which will often back up our strangulation skills. Now, let's look at what is unquestionably the most effective, the most well-known, and I think it's fair to say the most high percentage method of rolling someone from a turtle position down onto their back, where we can attack in the usual fashion with Judogatame. We have an opponent in a turtle situation. Let's understand the nature of placing hooks in. If someone is upright, typically if we're interested in strangles, we just put a foot in shallow, like so. However, when it's time to attack with Judogatame, back up, we want our foot to go all the way across the body. So if we're on this side, as my left foot goes in, you'll see my foot goes all the way across, makes a hook there on the far hip, just like so. It's important when I make this hook that my foot retract and hook actively into my training partner. That form of hooking, go back, is the preferred method for attacking with Judogatame. The question now is, how will I use my upper body? If that's how my leg is configured, how will I configure my arms? I have a bunch of choices. One, if I have a left hook in, is to go in with my left hand. Look at that first. So, we have the left hook in place. From here, I'm going to take my left hand and go in just like so. Now, I put my head down on the floor so that my weight is supported on my head and his body. I'm going to take my shin and bring it over my training partner's head. From here, my hip is going to go down towards the floor, and I'm going to sit on my hip. This is the position I want to do all of my work from. I never want to be balanced precariously on my head and shoulders. Here, I'm comfortable on my hip. I have the option now of switching my arms, like so. And from here, I can go to work. An easy first option from this position is for me to go elbow to wrist and separate his hands. From here, I can put on strong braking pressure directly from this position. I take everything in towards my left armpit, and from here, I apply braking pressure from this position. You will often get opponents who react to the braking pressure by engaging in a forward roll. That will relieve pressure temporarily. However, it does not get them out of the Judogatame. It makes it very easy for me to place my second foot over as a cross-face leg, and from here, I simply resume the attack to get the finish. Will you always be able to separate your opponent's hands? Absolutely not. Don't worry. Soon we'll see what to do when we can't separate the hands. But this scenario where you can separate the hands does occur quite often. And so we have to have a clear understanding of it. I'll demonstrate it this time facing in this direction. From here, as we've seen, we want our foot to go across, like so, as a hook. Once we've made that good solid hook, we're looking at the idea of going in with the left hand. There's other ways to do it too. The advantage of going in with the left hand is it makes it easy for me to use my right hand so my head doesn't crash down to the floor. With my hand in place, I can place my head down quite softly. Now from here, I take my shin on top of the back of his neck. I never want to balance precariously in this position. I want to go down to my hip. So my prime directive in these situations is to go down to a hip, just like so. Now, from here, I go in elbow to wrist. And as a result, we can quickly separate our training partner's hands. From here, I apply pressure to get the finish. A good way for him to temporarily relieve pressure is to hit a forward roll. However, the relief is purely temporary. Now we just bring our legs into place and we get a quick finish. Now, an obvious question here is, well, what if I can't get him to separate his hands? What if this guy's as strong as a bull and just locks his hands in place and we can't separate the hands? What should I be looking to do now? No problem. The roll itself can still be very, very effective. From a situation where I go through and we secure our training partner's arms, again, one thing never changes. I always want to control his head downwards. The method we're looking at first is to get my shin on the back of his head. Then I turn my hip down to the floor and we lock in just like so. Okay? Now, first method, watch my right foot. My right foot is right there on the back of his head. I'm going to use my right foot to push forwards as my left foot scissors back. So essentially what I'm going to do here is scissor my legs. My right foot is going to scissor forward and my left foot is going to scissor backwards. And as a result, we quickly roll our training partner through. And from here, we end up in a nice armbar situation. This scissoring leg method is quite an effective way to take an opponent over. So once again, we start off placing our hook through and around across our training partner's body. From here, we bring everything down towards the floor. I bring my shin over the top of his head and we sit through. From the sit through position, look how my left leg scissors back as my right leg scissors forward. And as a result, we roll him over into a situation where we can easily separate the arms and go into a judigatame. This scissor method is not a bad one, especially on opponents in your own weight category. However, it's not the complete story is how we're going to roll people over and go on the attack. Let's look at another method, which I believe is the strongest of all for actually just rolling someone over. Once again, we start off with our foot in, going across the body and hooking in place. As before, we go in on our training partner and get the hooks through. Now, my shin goes over the back of the head and we commit down to the floor. From this position, I'm going to look to get a hold of my opponent's far leg. So I'm going to reach for the near leg and pull everything in towards me. That brings his far leg closer, and as a result, I can score that far leg. Now from here, I put my right foot on the floor and my left knee comes back towards my own chin, like so. That creates a situation where Placido gets taken off the floor. Every part of his body is off the mat. And as a result, we can easily dump him down to the mat and go in to separate his arms and get to a winning position. It doesn't matter which side you attack. It's always more or less the same story. Once my foot goes across his body and we start hooking in on our training partner, look how from this position, my knee goes through and we end up in very good attacking position. I get a hold of my own thigh. I pull his knee in towards me so I can access both legs. From this position, I pull his knees towards my chest and my own knee comes up so that his whole body is taken off the floor. When his whole body comes off the mat, it's easy for me to treat this roll rather like a sweep or even a throw. I bring him up, my legs go over the top, and we're in the perfect attacking position, ready to go. Once again, this is arguably turtle position, the strongest method of putting my opponent down. From any situation where my leg goes across his body, from here, we're able to go in and secure our training partner's wrist. Now, I bring my knee over the top and we sit through into this good attacking position. Most people will teach you this move as a low amplitude turnover. What I'm trying to do is teach it to you as a high amplitude throw or sweep. So I pull the near leg in, bringing both legs towards me. And from here, I get a hold of the far leg. Instead of barely being satisfied with turning him over, I like to pick people up off the floor, like so. So his whole body comes off the mat. And as a result, it's very easy for me to bring him over. You will notice that I put my cross-faced leg on top of his head before I put him down to the mat, so that by the time he lands, everything is set in stone. It's going to be a strong judogatame from where we go into all of our various finishes and secure a strong arm lock win. Let's have a look at all those details again from other angles. From a situation where he faces this way, I place a right hook in on my training partner. That hook goes across his body. From here, we've seen the idea of capturing same side. Don't worry, we'll look at other sides soon. From here, look how I bring my shin over the top and switch my arms. From this position, I need to bring the far leg to me. It's currently out of my reach. So I bring the near leg in so I can get to the far leg. Instead of being satisfied with merely rolling my opponent, watch how I pull everything to my chest and my right knee picks him up in the sky. Once he goes up into the air like this, I own him. His whole body is off the floor. So I can pick him up, place my leg over his head, and by the time he lands, he's in a position to be broken. Picking your opponent up and dropping him is a clear display of the physical prowess and skill that you have over him. Once somebody's body leaves the floor, it's very, very difficult for them to resist you in any kind of meaningful way. Here, you're not just rolling the man over, you're picking him up and dropping him where you want him to go. As a result, you're able to put your legs in place, cross-face leg and torso leg, in ways where it's very, very hard for your opponent to time and escape and get away from you. Let's have a look at it one more time. So, from a situation where we start off with our hooks all the way across his body. I place my hand in, I take my shin, and I cover my training partner's head. From this position, I have a hand on my thigh, so I have a free hand to draw his legs in towards me and reach. Now, from this position, look how I take his two knees towards my chest. And as a result, I can pick him up off the floor. It's very, very important my own right knee comes back to my chest. I don't want to push him away where he starts to feel heavy. I want to pull him in towards me. Then the left leg comes over so that even as he lands on the floor, he's locked in a very tight judogatame. Everything's set in place now. And as a result, we end up in perfect position to go through and get our finishes. Now, here's a very, very common mistake that I see people get into when they use this move. Very often, they don't do a good job of pulling in the right directions when they try to bring their opponent's legs over the top. The most common error that I see is people trying to physically lift their opponent up in a wide arc over their body in the following way. With a right hook in, I go in to control my training partner's arm. I bring my legs over the top. It's a common mistake. Don't try to pick up people's legs and lift them high over the top. That is not the idea. Do not try to lift up. It takes enormous amounts of strength. Okay, I don't know what kind of strength it would require. What I want to do is pull his knees to my chest. It is not realistic to try to lift a foot high up over here and drop them in this direction. What is realistic is to pull his two knees directly to your chest. Then from here, it's my leg, in this case my right leg, that picks him up off the floor. Once he's off the floor, it's so easy now to put the cross-faced leg in place, and now we're ready to go. All of the moves that we've looked at in this video suddenly start to come into play. So many ways for us to go in and finish. Different forms of judogatame, etc., etc. And from here, we can go in and get the various finishes we want. Done in this way, you can roll big, strong, and heavy people reliably into Jujigatami. There's a reason why this has become more or less the standard method. It's highly, highly effective, regardless of size difference, gi, no gi, etc., etc. Make it part of your game. There are many ways to roll people from Juji, but if I only had one, I would choose this one. Now, we just looked at the most common form of Jujigatami roll from the chest to back scenario. I'm now going to show a variation of it, which I personally favor a lot. The conventional method of rolling your opponent is to use either your shin on the back of the head or your calf muscle under the head. Don't worry, I'll come back to the calf muscle one shortly. But there's an unconventional method of rolling your opponent. This is not to use your shin or your calf to roll your opponent over, but to use your thigh. I often have my students use this method. It looks a little strange the first time you see it. It even feels a little strange. But I do believe it adds considerably to the horsepower you can put into your opponent to roll big, strong, heavy people over when they don't want to be rolled over. Let's have a look at it. So here we are. We've got an opponent in front of us and we've got a hook in. In this case, I'm choosing my right hook. From here, my hand goes on the floor, head goes down to the mat, and we go in with either arm. Okay. In the previous move, we looked at the idea of starting with the right arm in. Okay. Let's start now. Look at the idea of going in with the left versus my opponent's right. This is actually my preference. Now, from here, so far, we've been looking at the idea of putting our shin on the back of the head, the conventional method. I'm going to show you now a different method where I take my knee and I put my thigh on the back of his head and I point my knee under his armpit. Now, when I put my hip down on the ground and Placido goes to resist me, you have a much tighter control of your opponent's head. And as a result, it's very easy for us to use that simple scissoring motion to put him over. You can always back up the scissoring motion with a hand on the knee. I generally find when I use this stronger method, there's no need to reach for the second leg. The near leg is just fine. And as a result, we can quickly turn our training partner over and go directly into the Jujigatami. This time, there's not going to be any hang time. You don't put your opponent up in the air and hang time him for the cameras. You just flip them straight over and put them down. I often use this on heavy, clumsy opponents who are difficult to roll by the regular methods. So, not that I'm calling you heavy or clumsy. So, clumsy, yes. Clumsy. Heavy, no. For sure. So, from this situation, we lock in over the top and we come in elbow to elbow. Now, from this position, look how I don't even bother to bring my shin into place. I just keep my knee over the top and watch how I drop my hip to the floor and roll my training partner over. And as a result, we end up in a nice little attack, ready to go. One more time. A variation that puts a stronger pressure on our training partner's head. And as a result, we can roll bigger, heavier people. So here we are, we're elbow to elbow on our training partner. From this position, I bring everything over the top and pinch inwards. I go down towards the floor, and I pull everything in towards me, and we throw him over. And as a result, we catch the man and end up in Jujigatami for the finish. I often use this thigh blocking method whenever I want a stronger control of my opponent's head, and I feel the regular methods of rolling him over are difficult to employ. Now, we're in a position now to start talking about some of the key themes of Jujigatami rolls. I'm sure you've seen from what we've been over so far that head control is a huge part of a successful Jujigatami roll. My ability to control my opponent's head is huge when it comes time to roll him over and put him on his back. Question is, how are you going to control his head? We looked at two methods. One is to put a shin on the back of our opponent's head and roll him through. That's the standard method and a damn good one. We've also seen an unorthodox method where we use the thigh on the back of the head. And this puts an even stronger turning pressure on my opponent's head and forces him forward into a roll, particularly when you've got big, clumsy opponents to work against. Let's look now at a third method, where instead of putting pressure on the back of my opponent's head with either my shin or my thigh, I'm going to wrap a cross-face leg in place. This has some pros and some cons. The pros are that when you use this method, your crossface is already there and you don't have to make any adjustments after the roll. The disadvantage is your opponent's head can still move up. But don't worry, we've got a counter for that. It'll be coming in the next section, so stay tuned. But for the meantime, let's look at this very effective method of turning someone over into Judigatami. So here we are, we've got an opponent down, and we're in here locked in place, as we've been doing so far. We're going to put our elbow inside his elbow, and from here, I look at my training partner's head position. If Placido's head touches the mat, I will always go either shin on top or thigh on top. However, if Placido's head comes off the mat, one of my favorite tactics is to lock and back heel. Make sure you never have a dead foot down here, where Placido can put his left hand on my foot and stop me from applying the crossface. We always want to back heel. Now from here, I put my hip down on the mat. Now, my hip is what keeps him down, okay? It's my hip on the floor which prevents him bringing his head up at this point. It's not the shin on the back of the head. The beauty of this method is that it means that anytime I get a hold of my training partner's far leg, I now have two legs to support him on. And as a result, when we put him up in the air and turn him over, no adjustment is necessary. You're directly in the Judigatami right from the start. And as a result, we can go right into the business of finishing our opponent, etc., etc. Let's have a look at this method again. We have an opponent down, we've got a hook in and lock. I come in elbow to elbow on my training partner. From here, look how I take my whole leg over the top and back heel. Now, I sit down to my hip. We're in the perfect position to draw one leg in and then the other. Once I get a hold of the second leg, from here, we bring him up into the air, turn him over, and find ourselves in the perfect finishing position. No need to adjust our legs afterwards. You're ready to go at this point. I often make use of this method whenever I feel I can make a quick transition and get my hip to the mat immediately. Now, I want to take note of two key points involved in a Judigatami roll that's going to help your performance of this move. The first is observation of your opponent's head position as you enter into the roll. And the second is a question which I'm sure many of you are asking by this point. What if I can't get a hold of the second leg? What if I've only got one leg to work with? What do I do now? No problem. Okay, first things first, head position. Whenever we go in on a training partner, one of the first things I take note of is where is my opponent's head as I go to work. So in here, if my opponent's head is up off the floor, I always like to go underneath and back heel. Now, if my opponent tries to grab my leg, I just put everything down to the floor. That was a stupid mistake on his part. When he goes to grab my leg, he's left his arm open. Now I can go directly into the finish from here. That forces him into a roll, and it's done. Okay, so that was a bad mistake on his part. Smart people aren't going to take the bait, and they're going to realize it's better just to hold on with your arms and defend later. So we go in on our training partner. I see the head is up. As always, when the head is up, our target is to go underneath and back heel. We sit down to a hip and take him over. Okay? Now, my desire is to get a hold of both of my opponent's legs. That's the best case scenario. But if my opponent splits his legs, that may not always be possible. In these situations, we grab one leg and we pull one leg over our chest. So long as one leg is over my chest, that's enough. What I can't have are two legs off my chest. It's hard to bring them over now. But so long as one of his knees goes across my chest, that will position a center of gravity over my hips. And that's all I need to put a big man down. So I'm going to grab one leg in here and pull it over. Once one leg goes over, there's nothing he can do to stop me from just tilting with my two legs and putting them down. And as a result, we end up in perfect position to go through and through our various finishes. Once again, First thing I look at, where's my opponent's head? How I go to trap his head is entirely dependent upon whether his forehead is on the mat or whether his forehead is off the mat. That's the first thing I look for. So I get a hook in on my training partner. I come in elbow to elbow. First thing I look at, where's his head? If his head is on the floor, like so, I will cover it either with my thigh or more commonly with my shin and put him down. Now from here, how far away are his two knees? If they're very close to me, I grab both knees. If he splits his legs, then I grab one knee and I pull one knee over my chest. I have confidence knowing that if one knee goes across my chest, I can always put him down. It's just simple physics. It has to do with the center of gravity. Now, those are the questions I always ask. Where's his head? Where's his far knee? If the head is down, I cover it, either with my thigh or more commonly with my shin. If my opponent's head is up, I put my crossface in place right from the start and I rely on my hip touching the ground in order to hold him down in place. Next question is, where's his far knee? Is it within reach? If it is, grab both knees, double leg him over. If only one knee is accessible, grab that one knee and bring it across your chest. Don't try to lift it up in the sky. Pull it in a straight line to your chest. That's very important. I'll say it again. Don't try to lift knees up into the sky. It takes absurd amounts of physical strength to do that. Just pull it straight to your chest and then just turn him over and he flops down into a perfect judogatami. Let's have a look at this in operation one more time. Okay, we've got a hook in on our training partner. From here, I go in elbow to elbow and I start looking at my training partner's head. From here, I notice his head is up off the floor, so there's no reason why I can't come around the corner and back heel. Never have your foot down on the mat, always back heel like so. Now from here, I turn down to the floor. I start looking at my opponent's legs. If both legs are close together, it's a good time for me to reach through and score my training partner's far knee. That's going to make an easy pull straight towards my chest, and from here we can employ a little bit of hang time, put him up in the sky and then down to the mat for a strong finishing position. Alternatively, from a situation where we have a hook in on our training partner, we get the hook across, and from here I'm elbow to elbow on my training partner. This time his head is down on the floor, so we're going to cover it, in this case, with our shin and go down to the mat. My opponent tripods and walks his legs away from me. There's no way I'm going to get to the second leg now. So I reach for the one leg I can access and I pull it straight into my chest. I do not try to lift over in a high arc. That is very, very difficult to do. I just pull straight in a straight line to my chest. And as a result, we can pull him up in the air, make a turn, and replace the cross-faced leg. And from this situation, there's so many ways for us to go in and separate our training partner's arms and get finishes. So this is the two main things I look for in any kind of judogatami roll. Where's his head and where's his far knee? Now we're looking at the idea of rolling our opponent over into judogatami. Here's something for you that's extremely important. You must be able to roll your opponent in at least two different directions. I don't care how strong you are, I don't care how good you are at the first form of judogatami roll. There's going to be someone out there who's strong enough and tactically sound enough to stop you in your tracks. Only when you have the ability to go in two different directions based upon your opponent's head position will you be able to systematically break through strong resistance every single time. And that's your goal. Remember, the goal of this tape and the goal of you as an athlete ultimately is mastery. I don't want you to be superficially good at judogatami. I want you to be good in a deep, deep sense in which you can go against good people and take them against strong, knowledgeable resistance and get the breakthrough. That's your goal. That's mastery. So, we have an opponent down on the floor. We've got a right hook in. We're looking at the idea of our contact. I have a choice between putting my right hand in or my left. I generally prefer left on right and right on left. I typically go in elbow to elbow so that I can balance on top of my training partner. Then from here, I've got to get over the head. Now, most of the time, if the head is down, I cover the head. But often your opponent's head will be up and you hook in like so. Typically, we always turn to the hips. This is always our standard method, to turn to the hips. This is the safest and most versatile method of rolling people over. I always make the turn into the hips, but that is not the only way of going. An alternative way is what I call a cross-face roll, where instead of turning to the hips, I turn towards the head. This is very important for you to know because all of your opponent's resistance is centered in the head. That's what will determine whether you're able to roll them or not. Think about what a forward roll is. A forward roll is just the movement of the head inside the legs that rolls your opponent over. If there's no head movement downwards, there's no forward roll. It's as simple as that. So the whole action of rolling someone into Judigatami is simply to put downward pressure on the head that forces them into a forward roll. That's what you're doing. You're essentially forcing a guy to do a forward roll. Imagine if we had a guy in a referee's position, like so, and we just took his head and we just physically forced the head inside. You would be forcing him into a forward roll. And that's essentially what a Judigatami roll is. It's just your shin, your thigh, your hip, or some other element forces the head down and puts him into a forward roll. And because of the body position you're in, you end up in a Judigatami. That's all you're doing. What if I can't force the head down? That's when we go into a cross-face roll. That's why it's so important you can attack in two directions. You either turn into the hips or you turn away from the hips. You've got to have both. If you only have one, you're going to become predictable and your opponent's going to time your move and get out. So we have a right hook in. From here, I come in elbow to elbow. I hook over my training partner's shoulder line. From this position, I hook underneath his head. Instead of turning to the hips, I'm going to turn the other way. I put my right hand underneath his body and watch my left knee. My left knee opens, and it's that which puts him right over. Then from here, we do what we always do. We go into the Judy position and get our finishes. This opening of the knee takes your opponent's chin and forces it up. And it functions in much the same way as a crossface does in wrestling. It directs the head in directions where it's so difficult for your opponent to prevent being moved around because his head is being controlled. Okay? So just as in the sport of wrestling, I can go through and apply a crossface on my training partner, which makes it very easy for me to direct his body in ways that suit me. So too, I can use my leg as a crossface to direct his body where I want to go. You've all heard the great cliche, where the head goes, the body follows. That's exactly what you're doing. From a situation where I start off with my training partner and I hook into my training partner's body. Look how I take my leg around the corner. Instead of turning to his hips, as I would conventionally, I turn the other way. I put my head down and I roll through this way, facing forwards. Now, if he starts to resist me, watch my knee. My knee opens and puts him down to the floor. This whole move is predicated on the opening of your knee that lifts his chin and makes him vulnerable to the roll. Here's how the move is going to go wrong for you. Athletes get into a position, hook, and sit down. Here is a conventional roll. Here's a crossface roll. When he tries to bring his head down, if I extend my leg, I will never win. Everyone makes this mistake. They push back into the guy. I can't roll him over. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong is you're not using your knee. I open my knee and his chin lifts. And he goes down effortlessly into the move. Let's have a look at the move from different angles so you can observe the effect of the cross-face knee. So I go in, my right hook in place. I go in elbow to elbow. I make the hook. Now, from this position, look how I turn and go down to my shoulder. He makes a strong, resistant body. Watch my left knee. It opens and puts him down into a position where we can easily separate hands, etc. Used in this way, the cross-face roll forms an incredible supplement to the standard forms of roll. I'm going to demonstrate the cross-face and the standard so you can see how in one direction I turn into the hips and the other I turn away from the hips, and how by playing the two against each other I can take advantage of my opponent's head position and roll big, strong people. So, we're in on our training partner and we have the hook across. Always there's the initial balancing act. That's the balancing act on my head. I come in elbow to elbow on the leg, on the arm, and then from here, the standard method is for me to trap the head and turn to the hips. From the hips, it's not a difficult thing to turn my training partner over. This stands in contrast with a cross-face roll. In the cross-face roll, there's the initial balancing act. I go around the corner, and now instead of turning to the hips, I go the other way. I feed the hands in, my knee comes in just like so. And now watch my left knee. It takes his head backwards and gives me what I wanted. Control of the head that puts his back on the ground. When you employ the cross-face roll in conjunction with forward rolls, that's when you start turning over big, strong opponents and dominating with judogatame from turtle positions. Now, one of the most important forms of attack with judogatame from the back occurs not from turtle position but from rear mount position. This is a move which is well known and often performed. Let's add some details that might help your application of the move in live situations. From a situation where I'm behind my training partner, most of the time when we get behind people, we like to create a control hand and a strangle hand and go in to strangle people. Typically, I'll have my athletes fall to the side of the control hand, and from here they bring their foot across the stomach into a strong defensive position. As a general rule, we prefer to lock body triangles whenever we can. If we feel that's physically impossible for us, we'll just keep our feet close together. Now, from a situation like this, if my opponent doesn't monitor my strangle hand, I'll go right in and strangle from the start. So most of the time, they're going to be looking to peel that hand down and keep it in the center line like this. Whenever we see that, this is often a good opportunity for us to go into judogatame. So as the strangle becomes more and more difficult, it'll often set up opportunities for arm lock alternatives. Now, I bring my leg over his elbow and I pull my right hand over his right shoulder. His grip is very good at stopping my hand going across the center line to strangle someone, but it is very poor at stopping my hand going over the same side shoulder. Now from here, I bring my hand to the same side so that left and right hand are on one side of his body. And from this position, it's an easy thing to get a hold of the Kimura lock. Now, my opponent's main intention here is to turn in towards me. That's what's going to enable him to escape the arm lock danger. At this point, there's no secret what's coming next. Okay, this is unrealistic for me to expect a real Kimura at this position, and I certainly can't strangle him because both my hands are on one side of his body. So there's no secret what's coming next. It's going to be a judogatame. He knows that. And so he's going to want to be turning into me. So in these situations, I have to get my cross-face leg in place pretty smartly. What I do is I use the safety of the Kimura to control his arm. Because I have a Kimura, I can play a game I normally wouldn't play with my hips, which is to shoot my hips away from the shoulder. Because I have a Kimura, it's safe for me to do that. Now, I pass my leg over my training partner's head. As he goes to turn into me, we lock up our crossface. We never have our crossface dangling in the breeze. We always back heel with the crossface. My foot comes back firmly into his neck. Now, I'm sure you all remember what we did with the knee when we hit the crossface roll. As our opponent turns into us, we open the knee. And that is what puts him down to the floor. It's that same opening of the knee that proves so decisive in the case of the cross-face roll, which we're using in this situation. And as a result, we can separate our training partner's arms and go through to a win. Once again, from a situation where we're behind our training partner and I go into threaten a stranglehold, I fall to the side of the control hand. From this position, look how I bring my leg over his elbow and easily free my hand. I bring my arm around the corner and I lock the figure of 4. Now, from this position, because I have the safety of a Kimura, it's a strong, secure grip that controls his arm very well, there's no reason why I can't shift my hips away from my opponent. What I don't want is to be so close and so far behind my opponent that I have a hard time getting my leg over his head. It takes great flexibility. So I create a little bit of space by shunting away from my opponent, and as a result, he's in the perfect position to apply the crossface. Don't just put your crossface leg anywhere. Be precise. Lock over the top and back heel. Now when he goes to turn into me, watch how my knee opens and gently steers his head down to the floor. As a result, it's an easy thing for us to control elbow to wrist position, and from here we go into a Judigatami finish. Let's have a look at it from a different angle. From this position, we go in and score our training partner, and we go in and threaten a stranglehold, forcing him into a defensive grip sequence like so. Now, from here, I pass my leg over my training partner's elbow and free my hand. I go over the top and I take 2 hands to one side of his body. So it's no secret what's coming next. It's definitely not a strangle. My arms are in the wrong position. He knows that. He knows it's going to be an arm lock. If I just keep my body where it is and I try to throw my leg over his head, it's going to take big reserves of flexibility. If he starts turning into me, it's going to be impossible. So our whole thing as he goes to turn into us is to shunt him away. It's that, relying on my Kimura to hold him in place, which makes it so easy to pass my leg over the head and apply a proper crossface. Never being lazy with my foot in any old position like so. Always tucked in here. As my opponent goes to turn into me, I open my knee. And it's the opening of the knee which creates the fine finishing positions that we're looking for. Now, an alternative method, which I often use with my students, is to use the top lock, the same top lock that we use from closed guard scenarios from the back. Hence, it's a reverse top lock. The idea is the same. I want to control my training partner's shoulder. But interestingly, it's the exact opposite because you're behind your opponent of a conventional top lock. Normally, the top lock is performed on the same arm that you're arm locking. This time, we perform the top lock on the opposite shoulder of the arm you're arm locking because you want to force his head down to the mat. From a situation where I'm behind my opponent, I lock up, I threaten a strangle, and I turn out to the side. I bring my leg over his just like before, free my hand, and lock up just like so. Now we know what the danger is. The danger is he's going to turn into us so that I cannot get my cross-face leg in place. So what I do is I cast my leg over his shoulder. That's always easy to do. It takes much less effort to go over his shoulder than it does to go over his head. Once I go over the shoulder, I just cross my feet. Now, his right shoulder is controlled by my legs. As he tries to turn into me, I just put weight on his shoulder and I force his head down to the mat. Once his head goes down to the mat, I just adjust my legs. I put my hand on my own thigh, I bring my second leg over the top, and we end up in the perfect Judigatami position. If my opponent was a klutz and had his arms in positions that didn't really make a lot of sense, there's no reason now why I can't make shifts into other forms of control, usually triangles. Say for example, Ushiro Senkaku, or lock hands. I might come out in the opposite direction and go into Omote Senkaku, the front triangle. There's going to be opportunities for that depending upon the skill and knowledge level of your opponent. If he's perhaps lacking knowledge, you might well end up with a triangle. That's fine, it's actually better. But most of the time if your opponent has any kind of skills, he's going to resist triangles and have to work his way out of an armbar. So, one more time. We get behind our training partner, threaten a strangle, and get stopped. You go around the corner, lock up some semblance of control, and then from this position, I start the action of pulling my hand free and locking up a Kimura. I throw my leg over his shoulder and I lock up a reverse top lock. As he tries to turn into me, I put all the weight over my training partner's head. From here, I turn in, pass my legs crossways over the top, and from here, we're in the perfect position to go through into our various finishes. And as a result, we've got a good straightened arm ready to apply the Jujigatami. So these are some excellent ways in which we can use attacks from a chest to back position, whether it be turtle or whether it be a rear mount. And these form a very different scenario. As a general rule, our Jujigatami system is split, I won't say in half because one side is much bigger than the other, but it's split in two directions. Those directions are the dominant chest to chest situations, which occur most of the time in the sport of jiu-jitsu: guard position, mount position, side position, etc., etc. Anytime my chest is facing my opponent's chest. And the slightly less common, but still very important, chest to back scenarios, which usually occur from rear mount and turtle scenarios. If you're going to call yourself a master of Jujigatami, and that I hope is your goal, because it's one of the most important moves in the sport, you must make yourself a master of both of those subsystems, chest to chest and chest to back.